Hello and welcome to PPM6 TV. Today we're going to look at the Presonus 16R, the baby of their new range of rack mount mixers in the Series 3 series. This is a 1U device. The 24 and the 32 input versions are both bigger. So what do you get for your money, and what's missing, which is the rather tempting title of this video. So what are you missing? Well, first of all, fair play to Presonus. They say it's 16 inputs. It is 16 inputs across the front. You get 12 combi mic line jacks, and round the back you get another 4, making the full complement of 16. And if you notice just off the end there, there's a couple of unbalanced ones that mirror 15 and 16, so you can plug your iPad in or something on an unbalanced cable. So nothing missing there. Then we come to the outputs, and it's got that familiar format of half the number of outputs of inputs, and we've got main outputs on XLR, and then 6 flex mix outputs on quarter-inch jack. So not much missing there. Back round the front, and I mean, it's not a hugely busy front panel, but there is some interesting stuff up here. We've got our headphone outlet and associated volume control, and that really has got a lot of oomph behind it, so nothing missing there. You've got an all stations mute, and just hidden away down here by the bunch of LEDs, probably quite hard to see, is the SD, the onboard SD card recorder. What's missing there? Well, probably what is missing that most people would want is the multi-track recording. I think you get that with the big mixer with all the faders and everything, but on these models, certainly on this model, it's a 2-track, 2-channel recorder. You can record the main mix, you can record any of the mixes. It's quite flexible in that sense, but maybe you were hoping that you'd be able to multi-track everything right in the machine. Well, I'm sorry to say, that's missing. What isn't missing is weight and heft and build. This is a very, very well built box, and fair play to Presonus. This really does feel like it will survive the rigours of the road. So 10 out of 10 there. So back round the back for a quick look at the remaining interesting socketry. Now, this socket here is labelled network audio, and that is AVB. And the good news, well, depending on your point of view, the good news is that this is now fully meets the AVB standard and should be interoperable with gear from everybody else. That is good news. It's also great news that you've got networked audio capability right on your mixer. They haven't left that out. That's not missing. In fact, that is a big, big bonus. The one thing that is missing is that although all the audio can travel over that, the control can't. And so that's the significance of the second network port. This one is for control, so that you can use the universal control app over a wire. And I would always recommend you do that. Of course, you can plug wireless in and do it that way if you want. But a wire is always a good thing in my experience. And then the humble classic USB 2, which I think is 18 in, 18 out, providing direct connection to your computer. And we'll use that just a little bit later. What's missing on that front? Well, you might say, you know, digital audio, maybe a SPDIF or AES, or even ADAT would be lovely, but I think that's a bit churlish, really, to be honest. I'm not going to complain about that. That's merely an observation. So in terms of I/O, in terms of facilities, not a huge amount missing. I suppose MIDI, would that be an issue for some people? I mean, it might be. Although, of course, you can control the mixer over your network connection, so maybe the requirement for MIDI is a little bit less than it was. And I think the big win is going to be the AVB. So we look forward to looking at that in a little more detail. Okay, so here we are in front of universal control. And the first thing you'll see is the inputs laid out down there, and I can scroll across. All 16 inputs on the device are visible there, and obviously if you had a bigger monitor you could see more of them. We select a channel by clicking at the top, and then we can see above the faders the processing and input options. So here are the input options up here, and at the moment I'm looking at the panel that shows me gain and phantom, etc. And to the right here we've got the processing options, and you get a fat channel on every input, and incidentally you also get one on every output. So we've got the gate, there's the compressor, the equalizer, and finally the limiter. And if we look at the compressor, we can have a look at some of their vintage style processes that are built in to the fat channel. So that's the processing that's available on the channels. If I go back up here to this section, then if I click there, I can change inputs and outputs. If I select the drop-down menu, I can have an analog input, which would be obviously one of the 16 analog inputs on the 16R. I can also have a network input, which is what I've got selected to this channel. A network input is from the AVB network interface, and I've also got USB, and I've also got SD card for replay from the onboard SD card player. On the channel itself, you can see solo and mute, pan, and the fader, and you can color the channel as I have done here, colored it red, and you can pick an icon. There's an extensive set of icons here that you can pick for your input, and I've got kick selected to that particular input. Now when it comes to outputs, I need to move over here. This is the output section, and for instance, I can click on AUX 1. There are 6 outputs here, and those are normaled to the 6 jack outputs on the back. And I can look instantly at the sends across all the channels, and you can see that only channel 1 is going to the AUX. If I select Mix Masters, then I can see the master faders for each of these 6 outputs. And if I select the AUX output and then go back up here, I can see the various different options that are available to me. I can have that routed to the mixer or to the network. And if I select that, deselect that icon, I can choose what sort of mix that's going to be. It can be an AUX, it can be a subgroup, or indeed it can be a matrix. Now, just a word about subgroups. Subgroups are proper groups that sum together the inputs that are being sent to them. And I've got a subgroup down here. And so these 1, 2, 3, 4 channels, 3 channels and talkback, will be summed to the group, and I can apply processing to that subgroup in the traditional way. However, the 16R also offers DCA filter groups, and filter groups you'll find here on the Groups tab, and I've got a few filter groups set up. So if I look at my kit filter group, again, I've got 4 channels sent to it. However, this is not, these 4 channels are not being summed here. This is really a convenience of mixing. So if I want to go from all my kit mics to all my vocal mics, then what's happening is all the other channels are being filtered out, and we're just seeing the ones in the group. And that, of course, is a tremendous aid to mixing when you can't see all your 16 faders in one lump. And I can exit that filter there. So again, if I go back to my mixes and I look at AUX 1 again, you'll see that up here again I've got the same options. I've got compressors, and I've got equalizers, and I've got limiters, and I've got those on every output. I also have a graphic EQ, which is I've drawn that in for fun. You do get a draw option, which is a little bit risky, but it is there if you want to hand draw in a curve. I don't recommend it. One note of caution: the GEQ will not appear in the headphones. It is the headphone feed is pre the GEQ on both the individual mixes and on the main output. So if you're wondering why you can't hear it, that's why. Now back to the channel section briefly. For effects, the 16R comes with 2 effects units built in. You can see effects A and effects B, and there is a small number of onboard effects. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 reverbs and 1, 2, 3 delays, and the sound of them is very good, I think. You may feel that you would have wanted a couple more, but you can't have everything in this life. And those effects buses, there's 2 effects buses, and they're available across all your 16 inputs. And then we just come to one of the other features, which is the onboard SD recorder. Now, the icon for that you can see over there, and you won't see that unless you plug in a properly formatted SD card. And I say properly formatted because I put one in that I've been using in my camera or whatever, and it didn't pick it up at all. I used a proper SD formatting software on the PC and put it back in, and then this icon appears. But only then. If you have no card plugged in, you'll be wondering why it doesn't work. So you can add a new session here, and I'm going to name this session Test 7. I've named it Test 8, but not to worry. So I create that session, and that's what the recorder looks like. If I hit record, it will happily go away recording, and it tells you down here what mix I can record, and you can see I got a full range of options down there. I'm recording the main left and right, and I hit record. One thing you will notice, which I think is a little bit of a drop off, is there's no meters on the recorder. I guess if you're looking at your main output, you'll see you can use the meters on that. But again, I think I would like some meters, and maybe that'll come in another revision of the software. So that is the SD card recorder. And so finally we come to the settings page. The settings are accessed up here on that cog. So I click that, and we get this screen here, which is kind of divided into three sections. There's tab options at the top. There's this side here, which deals with software applications that are logged into the 16R and what access rights they have. So at the moment, there's only my MacBook accessing it, and I can alter all the settings, but you can fine control what settings people have access to on their iPads or whatever. Also, if you have an iPhone or an Android phone, there's an app which offers limited functionality for use by the talent on stage to control their monitor mixes. Over on this side, we are looking at more detailed control of the system, and there's a very nice option here which is called the Fat Channel View, and this takes our channel here down the left hand side, which is channel 1, and it shows us an expanded view of the fat channel, so we can see the input settings, we can see the high pass filter and the limiter, we can see our gate settings, our compressor, we've got one of the vintage compressors loaded, and a vintage EQ loaded underneath that. So a really good view for digging into the detail of your sound. Up here we can just have a quick cruise around the network. That's the control network, and it's got DNS information up there. You can back up your systems. I haven't done that, but you can back up your settings there. And digital audio routing has got two tabs. On this tab we see the SD card record and also the USB sends. Up here, AVB. Now I have got AVB plugged in because the MacBook is plugged in, but I think this is for when you use this connected to a broader AVB network, and you can then adjust your sends and returns appropriately. Anything missing? Well, you might notice that the sample rate dialog there is grayed out at 48 kilohertz. The mixer doesn't do 96K, and I guess for some people that will be something that's missing. However, 44.1 is missing, but is promised, and should arrive in a software update, a firmware update, fairly soon. So that's a cruise round those features, the back end of the mixer. And if we return to the front page, then I think what we can say is there are maybe a few things missing. MIDI, the question of digital I/O, the higher sample rates, the number of effects processors. But don't let that list, I think, put you off. This is a highly capable mixer, and it has AVB networking built in, which I think is a great boon for the future. It is tremendously affordable. And the audio quality, I've plugged quite a few different preamps in just to test the quality, and I've done some recording against other much more expensive digital recording systems. And I think the quality is excellent, and I think you're getting excellent quality at a very, very attractive price. So all in all, I think the main thing that's missing off this is a big ticket price tag. I recommend, highly recommend that you check out the new Presonus range of mixers. This is a 16R. If you want more inputs, there's a 24 and a 32 input option. You've been watching PPM6 TV. I hope you've enjoyed it. Come back and have a look soon. Bye for now.